Everyone knows a bully. The victims hate them, but they know the bully, and the others admire them. But they are so well known in the school, everyone knows the bully.
Professor Dieter Volker has been studying bullying for more than 20 years. He says, not unsurprisingly, some bullies have the ability to be good leaders, but unfortunately use their talents in a negative way.
It's not the most adaptive response, because the most adaptive is to be a good leader, integrate everyone, get them work together, you get the most out of it, but the next best can be to be a ringleader bully. The bully does it to exert power and does it with the intention to harm. So you use aggressive means, which is either that you hit or kick someone, or you use relational aggression, which is basically that you exclude someone, spreading rumors, putting pictures up on Facebook, not inviting them. Yeah. So they do this with the intention, they do it repeatedly. Within the group of bullies, we really have to look at two groups of bullies. I mean, there's the one group which people usually describe, because it's sort of general assumption is when you ask people about bullies, it's people who don't know how to do it any other way, they don't have much high self-concept, etc. And these are the bullies who often get also victimized, they're bully victims. But then you have got the group who are actually quite confident, quite healthy, quite strong, and they've got good social skills, they're often also quite intelligent, and they're very good at manipulating others. But what they seem to be lacking, I'm not sure whether it's a mental health problem, but it could become a mental health problem, is that they have got some callousness. They have got sort of their moral compass is in a way missing, which is a compass that you actually hurt someone, that you have the empathy to feel what you're actually doing to someone else. They just see their side and that they get away with it, but don't have this connection of feeling, the sympathy, the empathy. You don't have sleepless nights, what happens necessarily to other people. But there may be a niche for that particular group, and it hasn't been unknown that people were in the end fired or had a downfall. And when you analyze these particular stories, whether they're in industry, banks, they would meet the profile of a bully.
Our school bus wasn't very nice. We had a lot of horrible people on our bus, a lot of bullies. And everyone on the bus, particularly on the lower deck of it, went through a lot of horrible bullying from these people at the top. And one particular time she was walking next to the bus, and they all started throwing food, spitting, everything, and no one in the cars behind, no one on the buses would help her, but I had to sit and watch her, and it wasn't the nicest thing. And that's when it really hit me that she wasn't what I knew her as a really bubbly, happy person.
I don't think I was singled out because of my weight. I think people bullies are complicated people. I think they see a difference, however slight it is, they see a difference, and they think, and that's something they can latch onto. But I can see that now as an adult, but at the time I was just, a bit of a freak. And so then at the time, it becomes your whole world.
Fortunately for Simon, some bullies do show empathy towards their victim.
The bullying began to stop as I was beginning to lose a lot of weight, and it's almost as if kicking someone when they're down. They did stop. These people do have a heart, and in fact I'm still friends with some of them. I forgave quite a lot of them and said, look, this is back when you were 13, 14, this isn't the person you are now, let's move on.
Not all victims, however, are able to adapt Simon's understanding approach. Many find the interminable bullying too destructive to handle.
There's no doubt that actually bullying, whether we put a psychiatric label to it or not, of the consequences, it's very distressing for people. And those children who have been over a long time victimized are much more likely to do things like self-harm. We looked in the British sample, over 6,000 children we followed from pregnancy to 17 years of age. And what we found is that self-harming, particularly if you were chronically bullied, is 4 times increased. Now, what we actually found is when we set something which you can calculate is if you could eradicate bullying, but everything else, social class differences, everything stays the same, how much of the self-harm could you reduce? It's a population attributable fraction. And we found it was 20%. There's also a clear relationship now established to suicide attempts or completed suicides. We found, for example, that those who were bullied or were victimized were more likely, found it more difficult to hold down jobs. They often had multiple jobs. They resigned from jobs or left jobs without having planned that they have another job. They were less good in their saving behavior. So whether they have a mental health problem or not, what they have lost is trust, had poorer social relationships also with their parents, found it more difficult to make friends.
Although offering specific advice can be difficult, Professor Volker does have some suggestions for parents.
I think the most important advice to parents is actually that we have got the 2 extremes which are, go with a higher risk of either becoming a bully or bully victim or victim. The first one is very harsh parenting. Is harsh or maladaptive or even abusive parenting, because children learn that you get your way through, and you might either become a bully because it's a strategy that works at home, why not do that as well to others, or it is actually I'm a learned victim, I'm helpless even if others do this. But the other strategy is, which is more often used in middle-class parents, is overprotective parenting or helicopter parenting, which basically means you try to make a smooth way for your child all the way. But it is like vaccination. You have to be exposed to conflict to learn how to solve it. If you as a parent try to solve all the conflicts for your child, and then suddenly it goes to school, you can't sit next to them in the school bench and help them all the time. And then they're without any strategies. They have no antibodies, so to speak, of being picked on. And so it's very important that for parents as a way to have some conflicts, but they need to be solved and they can aid them, and in particular being open to listen to your child and having that communication going, because then they're much more likely to tell you about it if a conflict happens.
I was bullied quite a lot at school, which disturbed me to the extent that I went to a different school. And I get on quite well there, when sort of like till my late teens.
I came into school late because I'd lived in America and everyone had made their friends and stuff. And suddenly the only 2 friends I'd made turned on me. And bullying can be as detrimental as mental illness, I think. You know, especially when you're a kid. My mum made me change schools and I went to a private school. It was better, but I was a city kid.
Lots of schools have got anti-bullying policies, and when we have looked at it, what has happened is that maybe what you described, like having a bloody nose and the direct bullying, might reduce, but you have got the relational bullying, and which is psychologically at least as harmful, which is like, for example, you're not my friend anymore, you're not part of our group, you get excluded, rumors get spread, so you get actually psychologically attacked and put down, and this has a lot of effect that you feel anxious, depressed, or that you're actually really downtrodden and have low self-esteem, which keeps you really in a deep hole. Just having a policy doesn't help. Also, I think it's very important, we always try to blame someone, yeah, like the schools, the doctors, or the parents, and they blame each other. And I think it's important, the most important thing is to work together as a community, to recognize the problems, and everyone has a part to play. Of course, school is important, but the school can't change if at home your siblings bully you and you have learned to be a victim, or you have got parents who don't react to it, or you have got health professionals who don't pick up on your problems and never ask you. And that's why actually 40% of children suffer in silence. They have no one they turn to, no one they talk to, because they're ashamed, and I think it's their own problem, and we have to open those lines of communication. By the time you're 18, you grow up as a child, you will have spent many more hours with your peers than you have spent with your parents. And it is quite surprising how much peers are ignored. and not taken into assessments or into treatments. Although a lot of those who have got mental health problems tell us that bullying or social exclusion done by peers was one of the reasons that they developed the problem. So I think we have a disparity, but what we know now, and that peer relationships are very important, and how our treatments are. And I think we have to bring these two things together to actually find more effective ways, also in psychological therapies, to work on this. Will bullying go away? No, because it's one of the strategies. But we can do two things. We can reduce it, which is important. The second thing is we can help those who are actually at the end, I mean, like the ones who are victimized, to give them tools that they become stronger and overcome it, like escape the victimization. Like, for example, simple strategies is to learn how to ignore it. A bully has got a strategy. They will pick on everyone. But when they find someone who starts crying, who runs away, who doesn't have any friends and so on, they say that's an easy target. So actually ignoring it, not reacting to it, having, for example, friends who stand by, and parents might have facilitated from sleepovers, having parties, bringing them over and so on. These type of different things can make a difference. And they are not rocket science. These are things which we can implement. They're not necessarily terribly costly. The other thing is very important, if there are more health problems of those children who are bullied, then one place where they will present very often is actually in GP practices, because they want to avoid going to school, etc. And it's interesting, whether in this country or in other countries, there's now a global perspective which we have started with American colleagues together, is doctors, medical doctors or primary care, they might, if they ask about how's it going at home with the parents, they never ask about bullying, even though the research evidence is very clear that it relates to health and to mental health problems. And I think we need to get this information across, that we regularly ask about it and develop new innovative ways of actually dealing with children in different settings. If they don't want to disclose to the teacher because they're too close, they might disclose to someone in primary care or to their parents.
Bullying does not vary by ethnicity, class or sex, but girls can be hurtful in other ways.
It's really nothing personal. It's just this table's invitation only.
Well, they have, in general, they have got slightly better emotional understanding. And I think if you have got a better emotional understanding or social understanding, then you are, of course, the side effect is that you can use it more effectively too. So you can use it better for excluding someone because you know exactly how it works. People have always focused on the direct bullying, you know, like for example, you get beaten up, you've got a bloody nose and so on. But they have got new tools, and the new tools is what you call cyberbullying. It's really not that different. It's just now what has happened is it has become worse in a way because it can be now 24 hours. Before you left the school gate and you were outside, and if you didn't go to the same playground, at least you had some safety at home. But nowadays you can, of course, they can post on Facebook, they can send you Twitter messages, they can send you text messages, emails, they can put embarrassing pictures on YouTube, of you. So there can be all sorts of things done, and it's really 24/7 now. And that's the difference that has happened. It's now all pervading.
Cyberbullying is not only all-pervading. Experts believe it can be even more destructive to the victim than the conventional physical form of bullying.
Cyberbullying is a massive problem, and it's growing. Every piece of research that's done, it seems to prove that it's getting worse and worse. The last official count was 1 in 3 was kind of the accepted worldwide figure.
Scott Freeman started his website Cybersmile to combat the dangers of cyberbullying several years ago, for a very specific reason.
I got involved because my daughter was cyberbullied for about 8 months, and the problem was severe. And I contacted schools, and schools didn't want to know. I contacted the police wouldn't do anything. So the problem was escalating, and no one would take responsibility for it. My daughter, when she was cyberbullied, moved schools and moved to different parts of the country, but because of the nature of cyberbullying, the problem just followed. So it don't matter where you are. So ultimately, it was just a matter of my daughter becoming of age to be able to cope with the stress and move on and interpret it the right way and see the bullies for what they are. It's very difficult with a real young child, a child who's 11 or 12 maybe, which some people would say slightly too young to be on social networks, but if you take your child off at 12, you probably, in the current climate, have a child who is treated very differently because they wouldn't be part of everyone else's social environment. Long term, my daughter's learnt that there is an end to the bullying, and you can feel better after it, and there's recovery. Because at the time, my daughter couldn't see a way out. It felt like her whole world was collapsing. And she's learned that cyberbullying is actually a life and death problem.
Ask FM is a popular social networking website based in Latvia, criticised widely by experts for allowing some of its users to instigate a number of harmful acts.
What makes Ask FM so dangerous in particular is that the default setting is on anonymous. So straight away, before anybody starts, they're being encouraged to act in a way that doesn't necessarily reflect themselves in normal behaviour. And it's all based around questions, asking questions about people. So it's a kind of recipe for abuse and for potential distress.
Freeman says some forums and games are equally bad sources of extensive cyberbullying.
Forums are one of the worst places for cyberbullying. Forums, newspaper, comment pages, gaming, and anywhere. We've heard of children's games for real young children online that have got cyberbullying. It's everywhere. It's a reflection of a problem in society.
Freeman acknowledges it may be some time before there is an end to cyberbullying. He believes before that time, it is essential offenders are educated about the harm it is doing.
We think that education is the key. We do programmes in schools, and when teenagers hear a first-hand account of the parents of a suicide victim from cyberbullying, and they hear detail, the colour of the cord and small details that really stand out with these teenagers, they comment after that they've never realised the damage that it does, and that from then they would think twice. So education in all different forms would help everyone understand how dangerous this problem is.
Even now, years after his own daughter was cyberbullied, Freeman remains deeply angry.
When my daughter was cyberbullied, I was incredibly angry and upset, and the fact that no one would take responsibility for the problem of cyberbullying, it was making me more and more frantic with anger. And the social media platforms weren't answering the emails, the schools weren't answering, they didn't want to know, they said it wasn't within their remit, the police said it wasn't a crime, and on top of that the problem was still happening and my daughter was getting more and more upset. So ultimately it was making me more angry and frustrated. So it was one of the most frustrating feelings I've ever had in my life. I'm still angry that there's children dying because of a problem which is completely manageable with education.
How can parents confront cyberbullying?
If you're a parent, make sure that your children know they can talk to you, because one of the biggest problems is when children think they're going to lose their internet privileges and then it's left to fester. So make sure your children can talk to you. If you're a child or teen and you're suffering, make sure you get help. You can go to cybersmile.org and get help. And just remember that there is help available when it does end.